How's it going, everyone? I am back with another video. This is going to be my Week 6 recap video where I'm going to go through all the NFL games that took place this past week and break down my key takeaways, thoughts, interpretations from the games, all that good stuff. So I'll just dive straight in here. The first game was the Thursday night game. It was Eagles Giants, and this was a shocker. I was pretty confident with the Eagles, like most people going into this game. I think the Eagles were favored by like 7 points or some 7.5, 7 points, somewhere around there, something like that. Um, I was pretty confident with the Eagles, and actually maybe it was 5.5, something like that. The Eagles were favored by a decent amount of points, and I was pretty confident with them, but I wouldn't have been, completely shell shocked if the Giants had won, but by no means did I think they would win in a blowout. The Giants controlled most of this game. The Eagles, their first couple plays, they handed off Saquon, looked good. They got held to a field goal. And their defense for most of this game could not stop Dart and the Giants' offense. They just went up and down the field on them. The Eagles' defense did not look very good. It looked like how it did against Dallas the first half of the NFL season. Because it was the opener there. Their defense did not look good in that first half. They tightened up in the second half. But this game kind of reminded me of like a full game of their first half, week one defense. They're benching their corners and their guys getting hurt. They're banged up. That defense did not look good in this game. And Dart has been phenomenal. Give him credit, which hurts me to credit the Giants as a Patriots fan. But Dart has looked great. His ability to buy time and improvise is really hurting teams. It's really benefiting the Giants. And the Giants, I mean, they talk about being banged up. I mean, look at who Dart's throwing the ball to. They have no one at the receiving core. Everyone's injured, it feels like. Obviously, Neighbors is out for the year, is the big one. Um, but yeah, the Eagles offense, they got held to a field goal, and then they were moving the ball fairly well in the first half. But then, yet again, just like every game this season, with the exception of the Rams game, the Eagles put up nothing in the second half. Not that they, have got shut out in every second half, but they have failed to do very much at the half. So what does that tell me? So that tells me that they come in with a good scripted game plan, and then as soon as coaches adjust, they really struggle to adjust themselves. So that's starting to hurt the Eagles. We saw it the first couple weeks when they were 4-0. We were saying, yeah, but it's an ugly 4-0. How long are they going to be able to sustain it? No way can they sustain winning this way. And now that they've lost two in a row now, including a blowout to, again, a Giants team that's played a lot better with Dart, but no disrespect to the Giants. I think they're still a bad team. And not to mention the Eagles have dominated this team in recent history. Now that they've lost two in a row, the flaws are starting to become more and more apparent. AJ Brown just looks beyond done at this point in Philly. I don't know what the hell is going to happen there. Every year there's trade rumors with him, specifically to my team, the Patriots. We thought he was going to get drafted by us. He cried when we didn't pick him and said Bill Belichick decided to take N'Keal Harry, but that's okay. Which, by the way, we completely misused him. He was actually good at jump balls, but we never put him in positions to do that. What else? What else? What else from this game? So yeah, the Eagles are just. I mean, it seems like the 23 season where they're winning, but it's ugly. The 23 season, they even look better. Even with the flaws they had then, they look better than they did now. I mean, record-wise, they were better too. They were 10-1. Right now, they're 4-2. And actually, a report came out yesterday. I forget which player. I think it was an anonymous player, but he said he's getting vibes to the 23 season. I am too. This Eagles team, I'm not going to say by any means, yep, they're done throwing the towel. I don't mean to make it sound like that, but I mean, they certainly have some flaws. I mean, Hurts had a bad pick this game. A lot of talk about how he doesn't throw a pick. That's because he doesn't put the ball in harm's way. Well, first of all, they barely pass it, A. And then B, when he does, he never puts the ball in harm's way. He only throws to like open receivers, it feels like. Or if he doesn't, like AJ Brown or Smith will bail him out or something like that. Hurts I actually thought looked good in the first half. Also, the tush push is 100%. I would be beyond shocked if it does not get banned in the offseason. A lot of talk about it already that, the Chiefs game, their false start, and they had a false start that got missed with it in this game. And then they ran it 4 times in a row at one point in this game, and they got a touchdown. So can't wait till that stupid play gets banned. I think it should be banned, not because the Eagles run it better than everyone. I think that's a lame reason to ban it. But I think it should be banned just because it's not a football play. It's just a lame play to watch, and no one likes it. It's just cheap to watch. Um, give the Eagles credit for mastering it, but it's just lame to watch, which is why I think it's going to get banned. Um, what else? Yeah, Eagles. I think they'll be fine. I think they'll certainly clean some things up. I think at minimum they'll make the playoffs, but well, again, their defense is banged up, and like I said, going into the season, I expected their defense to take a bit of a dip. It has. It's looked good in parts of the season. It's looked rough in parts of the season, up and down season from their defense. But I think their defense will get cleaned up. I think Vic Fangio, will adjust. They'll be fine there. Their offense with Kevin Patullo calling the plays. I mean, again, there's spurts where they look great, and then there's spurts where they look like the worst offense I've ever seen, and they don't know what they're doing. So that certainly needs to get cleaned up. I'm more concerned about the offense and the defense of the Eagles. I don't know if I would say concerned because I'm not an Eagles fan at all. So it's enjoyable watching them lose, but even though, again, thank God they beat the Chiefs and saved everyone in the Super Bowl this past year. But yeah, Hurts, a lot of questions on him even when he's winning, but now that they've lost 2 in a row, the criticism on him, and they're down 10, they're about to score, and he throws a pick six that basically iced the game. So, more criticism on Hurts. Again, never been a big Hurts guy as far as a pure passer. If you forced Hurts to pass the entire game, and the defense knows that I really don't think they're going to have too much success. Never been too sold on Hurts as a pure passer. So the Eagles' flaws, they've had them the whole season, but when they were winning, they obviously were disguised a bit. Now that they're losing, they're a bit more evident. But again, the Giants, give them credit. That defense is starting to play better and better. They're starting to look like the monstrous defensive line we expected them to look like. Dart has given this team an obvious boost of energy, morale. So was Scatterboo. He went off in this game. Probably should have had 100 yards. They took him out when he was just short. Dart probably should be 3-0 as a starter. They didn't turn over 5 times against the Saints. They would have won that game. They play, who the hell did the Giants play this week? I want to say Denver. I think it's Denver. Actually, I'm going to double check. That should be an interesting game. Let's see. Yep, they played Denver. That'll be an interesting game. Philly plays the Vikings. That'll be interesting. But yeah, my big takeaway coming out of this is the Eagles' flaws are getting worse and worse. They're more glaring. They need to clean some things up. If I was a neutral fan, I'd be a bit concerned about the Eagles, but I don't think their season's. I'm not going to overreact and be like their season's over. The Giants are certainly on the right trend, though, so good for them to get this win. Eagles, what a mess. What a mess in this one. Well, speaking of what a mess, the Broncos and the Jets, I don't even know what to say about this game. This is one of the worst games of football I've watched in my entire life. It's one thing, I don't mind watching a good defensive game, like if it's a low-scoring game. And again, I'm going to sound biased a bit, but like when we played the Rams, in the 2018 Super Bowl, technically it's 2019. It was like the 2018 season, and we Super Bowl 53, and we won 13-3. Well, again, I was into that game obviously because my team was playing in the Super Bowl, and I expected us to win that game. It was within one score the entire game until Gostkowski made the field goal there. But I think that was obviously low scoring, but I think it was good defense rather than just piss poor offense. This game was good defense by both teams, but I think it was because of the piss poor offense from both teams. More so the Jets. This is one of the worst coached offensive games I've ever seen in my entire life from a team. I mean, Do they realize? Do the Jets realize they're allowed to pass the football on first down? Like seriously, I understand. They're a run first team. The game's right there. The Jets were actually leading for a good portion. The second half, they were leading after they got the Broncos got a holding call. They got a safety in the end zone. So that's well, I mean, basically all the Jets points came by default field positioning, pretty much off of a kickoff return or the Denver fumble on their first possession. So all their points came from either the holding penalty that caused a safety or default field positioning in the end zone, pretty much, or not the end default field positioning. I mean, rather than moving the ball. The Jets defense played a good game, but the Broncos offense was just Sean Payton did not call a very good game. They looked great at the start of the end of the first quarter. They're moving the ball in chunks, and they end up getting that touchdown. I'm like, all right, yep, the Broncos going to blow this game wide open, blow the doors off the Jets here. And then after that, they did nothing. They couldn't move the ball at all. They're running too much. Nix is rolling to his right too much. That's been a bit of a talking point on Nix rolls to his right way too much. Sean Payton called a very poor game. They ended up putting together a half decent drive in the fourth quarter where they got a field goal that ended up winning the game. Broncos defense has been really solid for the most part this season. They were outstanding this game, but again, it's because of the Jets offense just being bad. But getting back to my Jets talking point here, I mean, I understand you're a run first team. You want to run the ball. You're actually leading in the second half for a majority of it. The game's right there. So you want to establish the run. But you got to let, the pass game loose at some point. Fields was awful in this game. He had negative 10 net passing yards. Is it all on Fields? No. But, 3rd and 8, Garrett Wilson was wide open on the route. Fields is like to hit him. If he hits that play to Garrett Wilson, the Jets very well might win the game because they're in field goal range, and they can basically, drain the clock and just kick the field goal, and if it goes in, they win on a walk off. Took too many sacks. Justin Fields holds the ball way too long. What else? Oh yeah, then the absolute disastrous way the Jets handled the 2-minute drill at the end of the first half. They run it, and then they fake the punt 4th and 1. So they're obviously in their own territory. So they're obviously being aggressive. So you think they're going to take some shots, and they're almost at, actually I think they are at midfield pretty much, and they just run it. They let the clock during no sense of urgency whatsoever, and then Aaron Glenn's kind of smiling on the sideline. I mean, what an absolute disaster. Garrett Wilson's pissed off, questioning it. Now, he's out in multiple weeks, and their offense could get any worse. It's about to, it looks like, at least on paper. I mean, I actually didn't mind the Aaron Glenn hire for the Jets because, I didn't think the Jets were going to be good, but I thought they would be like a gritty, maybe 5-win team this season. I mean, if they win three games at this point, for Christ's sake, maybe 3 or 4 at this point, and again, that's just one short of 5. But I expected them, even though I expected them to lose more than win, obviously, I expected them to be a lot better than this. I mean, they've been a disaster. And it's been like this forever. And they fired Saleh, went 2-3. And Saleh's, I mean, look at him on the 49ers. He has that defense despite half of his team being in the hospital. He has that defense balling out for the most part. And then Aaron Glenn, the defensive-minded coach, has, with this exception of this game, his defense has been a joke this entire season. So, I mean, just a, questionable decision to let Saleh go. And then you bring in Glenn. It's just, I like the culture change he brought, at least, from what I was hearing in training camp. But it's just a disaster now. Just the Jets are like cursed. They need to make some serious changes because they have just been so bad and so comically bad for so long. It's just a disaster. Um, oh boy, yeah, the Jets just. I mean, the way they handled the 2-minute drill, and Kurt Warner just speechless at how poorly it was handled at the end of the first half is a great summary of the Jets season this far. Then Aaron Glenn said he regretted it. And I'm like, oh, okay. And then I'm reading more. He's like, well, I should have called a timeout with a few seconds left and attempted a Hail Mary. Well, I guess that's better than how we handled it, but you should have been more aggressive prior to that. and attempting to throw the ball, down the field a bit more to get into field goal range. You had at least a few plays left, and you had your timeouts too. So that is just not good on the Jets' part. And they still, despite me ripping them so much, they still almost won the games. The Broncos' offense was so bad. The Broncos' defense alone won them the game. Their offense was putrid outside of that touchdown drive. But, at least Denver got the win. Maybe traveling overseas, they were a bit, out of sync. So, against a terrible Jets team, at least they got the win. Denver, not too many positives outside of their defense, but I think, you can thank the Jets offense being so bad for that too. So ugly win for the Broncos. At least they got the dub. Jets are just a complete and utter disaster right now, per usual. Oh boy, my team, the Patriots and the Saints. So I just uploaded my weekly Patriots video dedicated specifically to this game. So I won't go too in depth on this game, but I will say, obviously, the big talking point is the refs did anything in their power to give the Saints this game, one of the worst officiated games I've seen in my entire life. Two absolute bullshit PI calls on Diggs, both of them. Pop Douglas got robbed, struggling the season, would have been a feel-good month for him, got robbed of a career game in the first quarter alone, too. May was absolutely phenomenal. This game would have, stats would have been even better. The refs didn't single-handedly screw him and, the team and Diggs over. No run game whatsoever. That needs to be cleaned up. Defense was a bit concerning, but tightened up a bit. Run defense is fine, but pass defense needs to get cleaned up a bit. I'm not too concerned. I think we'll be fine. Could have been a trap game for my team, so I'm glad we didn't fall for that. Coming off the high of the Bills game, we, go into New Orleans, only a one-win team. Could have just, went in, just kind of taking it easy. We can win this game and we lose, but we didn't fall into that trap, so I'm happy that didn't happen, obviously. What else from this game? Yeah, May clutch drive at the end of the game. Booty was clutch this game, had two touchdown catches at the catch to ice it on 3rd and 11. Just nailed it out from there. Vrabel on both of his challenges. Can't remember the last time that happened off the top of my head. That's how poorly the game was officiated. That fumble that our defense caused was huge. In the fourth quarter, Saints are driving there at midfield. Who knows? Maybe they take the lead. I think we still would have won the game anyway. If that was a big play, even though our offense didn't capitalize. Our offense only scored 3 points in the second half, so that needs to be cleaned up a bit. But the first half, the only way they stopped us, the Saints, was because we went for 1 on 4th down. We fumbled the snap was high over May's head. May just fell on it to, make a bad play from becoming even worse. What else in this game? Rattler looked good. He's been very under the radar. Now we're starting to get some attention. He's actually been good this season. Rattler looked good. Saints are 1-5, but the Saints are kind of what I expected. I was just talking about the Jets. The Saints are kind of what I expected the Jets to be. A team with a bad record, but they're scrappy and competitive. That's a good way to describe the Saints this season. That's kind of how I expected the Jets to be. But the Jets are just a disaster, as I just highlighted, obviously. But yeah, big takeaway in this game is, again, happy my team didn't fall into the trap game. Got the dub. Wasn't the prettiest of wins, but against a scrappy Saints team, good win nonetheless. Saints, I expect them to be like this in most of their games. They'll probably pull off an upset or two. So, Saints, I've been impressed with them this season, honestly. I like what Kellen Moore is building down there. So, tough loss to them, but they're certainly building something there, but good win for my team. Cardinals Colts. This was a bit of a surprise, I think, as to at least the final score. Now, I think a part of that is the Colts were extremely banged up defensively. There's the weird play where Ward during warmups bumps into the tight end and he's injured for the game, out for the game. They had, a receiver playing corner at one point. But again, the Cardinals offense has been very suspect this season, you can say. And, Jacoby Brissett's in there, so you can think it's going to get even worse. This was the best the Cardinals offense has looked the entire year. Even though they lost the game, they're moving the ball. They had a 7-point lead in the fourth quarter. And I'm like, the Cardinals going to win the goddamn game, for Christ's sake. The Colts tied it, and then they ended up obviously taking the lead and hold on to it. Cardinals were putting together a drive at the end of the game to take the lead. Fourth down, should there have been a holding on McBride? Probably, but I think the ball was kind of uncatchable anyway. So, I think it, it's a tough call because you can say the Cardinals got screwed, but if the refs had thrown a flag there, you can argue the Colts would have gotten screwed if they had gone on to lose because I think the ball was out of McBride's reach anyway. So kind of a tough break for the Cardinals there. Uh, I kind of thought going in this game, I talked about it in my score predictions video, that this game might be a bit closer than people think, but I'm picking the Colts. That's what happened. It was even closer than I thought. I didn't expect the Cardinals to have a 7-point lead entering the fourth quarter. And again, I think a large part of that too because to the Colts just being so banged up at corner in this game. Daniel Jones with a clutch drive late, well, two actually, with the one to tie, one to take the lead in this game. So credit to the Colts for that. Yeah, Colts nice, grind it out, come from behind win. Good game from them. Their defense obviously not a great game. At least they held up at the end there again, which could have been a flag, but tough break for the Cardinals there. Again, they're trending in the wrong direction. They've lost 4 in a row now, and again, including that inexcusable Titans debacle. But they were really competitive in this game. No one really gave them too much of a chance. The Colts were like 9.5-point favorites in this game, I think. So the Cardinals, played better than most people thought. They almost pulled it off. Tough loss for them. They keep losing. It's going to be interesting to see what happens there. It's a tough loss for the Cardinals here. Good win for the Colts. And just an overall fun game to watch in this one. Cowboys, Panthers. Yeah, shootout, two terrible defenses. Cowboys defense is just an absolute disaster right now. It is actually hard to comprehend how terrible it is. But get the Panthers credit. Bryce Young and company, they have turned it around after, they started off 0-2 and then 1-3 coming off of, humiliate. Jesus, I can't say the word. Humiliating loss. There we go. I don't know why I just struggled saying that so much. To my team getting blown out in Foxborough. They've won 2 in a row since then. They're down 17-0 to the Dolphins. They come back and win. And, of course, the Cowboys defense is terrible. Regardless, it's still impressive, whatever team you're facing, to put up 30 points. So give credit to Bryce Young and the offense there. I almost picked them in this game, which is why I'm upset at myself. I'm like an idiot. I bet the Cowboys in one of my parlays, like an idiot. So, of course, I was beating myself up when they lost. It looks like Dallas is going to win in parts, and it looked like the Panthers are going to win in parts of this game. It kept going back and forth. But as soon as the Panthers, they converted a 4th and 2, I'm like, yep, Carolina's going to win the game here. They ended up kicking the field goal as time expired, walk-off field goal to win the game. The Cowboys offense, 27, they moved the ball. The Panthers couldn't really stop them. The fourth quarter, actually the second half in general, the fourth quarter defenses got a couple stops. But Dallas, this is the problem with their team in general. Their offense just needs to play borderline a perfect game, or they're in serious jeopardy of losing the game because if they don't put up at least 3 points every possession, their chances to win the game are going to skyrocket down because their defense is so bad. Now, again, Eberflus, obviously, you can easily criticize in the season. But I think a large part of why their defense is so bad is because they just don't have the talent there. And Eberflus, again, obviously did not work out as a head coach of the Bears, but as far as being a pure defensive coordinator, I thought since he took over play calling duties to the Bears, in the middle of the season in 23, I thought that the Bears actually had a really solid defense for the most part. And, the 24 season, before he was fired, they were playing solid defense too. And I thought that, maybe he can get the Cowboys defense, to be serviceable this season. So again, Eberflus, I'm sure himself, he hasn't done a great job, but I think a large part of that is just because Dallas doesn't simply have the talent there. Maybe trading away like a generational player like Micah Parsons has something to do with that. Just a guess, but who knows? But yeah, Dallas, I mean, their offense has been absolutely phenomenal. Schottenheimer's done a fantastic job. He's done far better than I expected him to this season, so credit to him for that. But the defense is just a disaster. Tough loss to them here. Panthers, 3-3, and they play the Jets, so that'll be an interesting game, even though the Panthers are far worse on the road than they are at home. But yeah, Panthers, good for them to get the win here. They're trending in the right direction. Dallas, I think, will be fine. But yeah, that defense is bad. Good win for the Panthers, though. Rams and Ravens. Speaking of bad defenses, I guess the one positive for the Ravens in this game is their defense actually played solid. They only allowed 17 to the Rams, and they kind of had the Rams out of sorts. Now, the Rams, I think, did get a couple unlucky breaks in this game with drops and miscues and things like that, and Stafford being off target. But they cleaned it up in the second half. They put up 2 touchdowns. It was 3-3 at halftime. The Rams put up 2 touchdowns in the second half. But besides that, the Ravens defense, they changed some things up. They're still banged up, and they got I think they're going to be getting some guys back. I think they got some guys back in this game, and obviously they played well enough to win the game. They only allowed 17 points. That's pretty good, especially considering you're playing a high-powered offense in the Rams, even though Puka got hurt. Obviously, the problem for the Ravens was the offense. They only put up 3 points. They benched Cooper Rush in this game. They brought in Huntley. They had a horrible sequence at the end of the first half where they're at the goal line and they tried to sneak it in like 3 straight times, and then they handed it off to Henry on 4th down. The Rams stuffed it. That was a disastrous sequence. Otherwise, the Ravens could have been up 10-3 heading into the half, and then who knows what happens. The Rams probably still would have won, but who knows? The Ravens having the momentum. Rams definitely took the momentum into half after that stop. But yeah, Rams were just out of sync, in a bunch of areas offensively in the first half. They cleaned it up, scored 2 straight touchdowns in the second half. And then they didn't do too much after that, but, they did enough to win the game. So Rams, not a very pretty win. It was kind of like in 21, the Ravens were injured. They were on a losing streak. They weren't playing as bad as they were this season to head into that game, but everyone expected the Rams to win, and they won right at the end. I remember OBJ caught a touchdown pass to give the Rams the win, and they narrowly won against Ravens team struggling. People expected them to win. So that kind of reminded me a bit about this. I can't talk. This reminded me about that game a bit. But yeah, Ravens. If their defense, they're getting guys back. If they can clean some things up, their defense plays fine. They're getting Lamar and company back. Even when they were losing, they were putting up good, a bunch of points. Besides that Chiefs loss with Lamar. So, yeah, Ravens, even though they're 1-5, I think they're going to make a run, at least at minimum contend for a postseason spot. Really, they can probably only lose 2 or at most 3 games. I think at minimum, at max, 9-8 will be borderline a 7 seed, something like that. But obviously 10-7, you get better odds. So the Ravens, they've obviously put themselves in a hole at 1-5, but I think they can make a run. Once Lamar gets back, the defense gets back, they can play good. Maybe not even good, just half decent. Yeah. Rams, though, ugly win. Good for them to get the dub, at least. They've been a bit weird at points this season, but good for them to get the win. Tough one for the Ravens here. Chargers, Dolphins. Did not really expect a shootout with these two teams. This is a weird game. It felt like the Chargers were kind of in control for most of this game, especially in the second half. It really felt like they were in control. They're up 2 scores. They scored 2 straight touchdowns. Dolphins offense has nothing going. And then just, out of the blue, the Dolphins put together a drive. I forget who the DB was, but he jumped a pass, missed it. Dolphins end up getting some yards out of it. And then they score with A-Chain. And as soon as they scored with A-Chain to make it a 6-point game, I had the Chargers in one of my parlays. I'm like, I rarely will ever cash a parlay out. I usually just let them ride because I usually only throw a couple bucks down anyway. And I'm like, I'm seriously considering cashing out because I think the Chargers are about to blow this game. And then you have to go 3-and-out. The Dolphins get the ball back, go down the field and score. And I'm like, yep, the fucking Chargers are going to ruin my parlay. I'm like, fuck you, Chargers. And then they get a big return. They're at like the 40, and two straight plays in a row. Herbert's like immediately under pressure. The first one, I think, was an incompletion. The second one, he gets it to McConkey. McConkey makes a ridiculous play, gets a bunch of yardage, and the Chargers, they run it three straight times. They get the field goal, and then two on the last play of the game, throws a pick. He had three picks in this game. So Chargers, kind of interesting win for them. They're dominating the game. It feels like they almost blow it, and then Herbert and McConkey kind of bailed them out at the end. Um, so it went from a solid win to what would have been a choke job, a horrible loss, to okay, maybe they got a bit lucky to win that game, even though they deserved to win. They outplayed the Dolphins, at least in my opinion. Dolphins, oh boy. Then Tua goes to the podium after the game. He's calling out players for not showing up to players only meetings, saying the guys are showing up late. He apologized about that today or yesterday. I forget which. I think it was yesterday. But boy, they are a disaster right now. Mike McDaniel is on very thin ice right now. Even as bad as they've been, you can argue they should have won this game, so that's 2 wins. They probably should have won. Who did they play? No, week 3 week 3 is the Bills. You can argue that game. They had the chances in that game too. They had their chances week 2 against my team, although we outplayed them. We deserved to win that game, I think. Who the hell did they? Obviously, they beat the Jets. Oh, they should have beat the Panthers. That's the team I'm trying to think of. They should have beat the Panthers after being at 17-0. Arguably, they should have won this game. So, they're not too many plays away from being 3-3, as bad as they've been. Same record as the Chiefs. Obviously, you trust the Chiefs more at 3-3 than the Dolphins were, but still. Dolphins, yeah, they're just heading in the wrong direction. McDaniel on thin ice. Looks like they almost pulled it off, and they blew it at the end with that defensive play. So give credit to the Chargers pulling off the W, even though they almost blew it. Herbert, McConkey bailed them out there. So at least the Chargers got the W. Tough one for the Dolphins here. Browns, Steelers. Yeah, I really don't think there's too much to talk about this game. The final score is just kind of pretty indicative of how the game went. The Steelers were just leading the entire game. And yeah, like most Browns games, the Browns defense kind of kept it close. Their offense wasn't really doing much. Rough day at the office for Dillon Gabriel and company. Steelers defense played a good game. They've been playing a lot better after the first 2 weeks of the season when everyone was questioning what was wrong with the Steelers defense. And yeah, it was kind of within 2 scores most of the game, and but the Browns were right there. Their defense keeping them in if their offense going to do too much. Pretty much like most Browns games this season. Yeah, a couple explosive plays from the Steelers helped put points on the board. Honestly, not too much to talk about from this game. Kind of a typical Steeler win where their offense doesn't do too much but puts up a respectable amount of points, and their defense plays a solid game. Yeah, just trying to. Oh, here's the talking point. The Jalen Ramsey blew up a play and pointed to Shedeur on the sideline and said he needs to be put in the game. Yeah, I think at this point it's just a matter of time until Shedeur plays. Dillon Gabriel, they're just being very conservative with him, and he's not been too great. He was actually solid in the Vikings game, I think, but he was obviously struggling in this game. I think it's only a matter of time until Gabriel gets benched, but who knows? This is just going to be the case for the Browns most of the season. Defense keeps them in it relatively within reach. Their offense doesn't do too much. Steelers, typical Steeler win in this one. Like I said, their offense doesn't do too much, it feels like, but they put up, a decent amount of points. Defense, good game. Browns, just a tough, ugly loss to them here. Steelers, 4-1. At least they're piling up wins, though. Solid win for them here. Seattle and Jacksonville. Yeah, this game was really hard to predict. Could have gone either way. I picked the Seahawks. I expected, more points in the Jaguars here, but I just trusted the Seattle defense more than the Jacksonville defense, which is why I picked Seattle. I said that the Jags defense, they're forcing, a million turnovers. But besides that, their teams are moving the ball on them. So if Seattle can, limit the turnovers, I feel pretty good about them in this game. And Mike Macdonald certainly cleaned his defense up from the disastrous performance they had against Tampa the week prior. And yeah, they were in control most of this game. The Jaguars were actually up 6-0, and then came Little missed an extra point. And then Seattle, they scored 20 unanswered after that. Then the Jags scored a touchdown, went for two, didn't get it. Well, actually, they missed a field goal in between that, too. So rough game for Cam Little, who's been a really good kicker for the Jaguars. Then Seattle at the end there, they just drained the clock out, had a really lengthy drive. Jags, I think like two separate times they had the ball back with a chance to tie. They couldn't do it. Maybe it was only one, but they had at least a chance drive with the ball to try to tie. Seattle's defense, obviously held up. And then, the end of the game there, Seattle kicks the field goal. They got two scores, would have been pretty much the game, barring a miracle. And there was a penalty on Jacksonville, so Seattle just accepted the penalty and just kneeled the ball out. So you can say how well the Seahawks played this game. They should have won more. They controlled most of the game. You can say that, but the Jaguars are a really solid team, at least as of now. So good bounce back win for the Seahawks. JSN is, I saw on page 7, the greatest single wide receiver season in history. So that's insane. Darnold has played a lot better than I expected. Seattle's offense has been a lot better than I expected. Credit to them for that. Jags, just a tough loss in this one. I'm not too concerned with them, though. I think they'll still be. I don't know if I expect them to honestly, keep it up with, as far as winning with, because I feel like a big part of why they're winning is because their defense keeps getting all these turnovers. And, really, how sustainable is it that they're going to keep forcing this many turnovers? But besides that, I do think the Jags, even if they don't finish above 500, I think they'll be really competitive. They'll still be a solid team this season. So tough loss to them here, but really good bounce back win for the Seahawks in this one. Titans, Raiders. Yeah, this was a shit bowl. 2-1-4 teams. Titans are just an absolute disaster. It's really hard to find anything positive to say. Well, actually, the one positive is they fired Callahan, who, in my opinion, is one of the worst head coaches in the history of football. He is an absolute disaster for them. The one positive from them losing to the Cardinals, at least from my perspective, even though it completely ruined one of my parlays, I was like, all right, at least I think they're going to lose to the Raiders, but if they lose that game, I don't think they're going to fire Callahan then. So at least he'll still be the head coach when he plays my team. Because, again, Callahan, I think, was a disaster, so I would have felt more confident if he was still the head coach going into this game against my beloved Patriots. I still think we'll win, but maybe the Titans will get the interim head coach boost. Who knows? But, yeah, even the score's a bit misleading, you can say, because the Raiders were up 17, and the Titans, you can argue, borderline garbage time. They put up a touchdown. They got the ball back, and they converted like a 4th and 15 on a check down to Tajay Spears, and I'm like, oh my god. But then Cam Ward fumbled it. It wasn't even a strip sack. He just went to throw and just lost his grip on the ball. The Raiders recovered. They still would have had to score, got an onside kick. So the Raiders almost surely would have won the game anyway, and they would have had to score, again, either a touchdown or field goal, depending on what happened there. So, yeah, Raiders kind of were just in control of this game. It was very low scoring throughout. The Raiders offense didn't do too much. Geno, he is just, my God, he is bad, which it makes me even angrier at how well he played against my team week 1. But, he barely attempted a pass beyond 10 air yards, but, they were moving the ball, and the announcer's like, well, as long as, they're moving the ball, they're not turning it over. And then he completed, I think, either 9 or 10 straight passes. And then on the next one, he threw an interception. The weekly Geno Smith interception, it feels like, leads the league in picks. And he said something like, oh, I'm unlucky. I need to cleanse wash the bad luck away in a lake or something like that. Where it's like, maybe some of your picks are unlucky, but you've been terrible the whole season. You've had a lot of drop picks, like that Chargers game. You threw a couple of drop picks of passes that should have been picked alone. So maybe some of them are bad luck, but a majority of them are just because you put the ball in a terrible position. But anyway, the Raiders very much needed to win this game. Obviously, both teams are 1-4, and I think everyone would agree the Raiders have a bit higher aspirations than the Titans this season. So the Raiders, they took care of business, were leading, kind of in control most of this game, even though the score was relatively close for most of it. So give the Raiders credit for getting the dub. Unfortunately, they played the Chiefs this week, so that'll be on the road in Arrowhead. So that's going to be tough for them. Who knows though? NFL's been so crazy this season. Who the hell knows at this point? So tough one for the Titans here, but at least they got rid of the joke of a head coach that Callahan was. Just a disaster. Um, but yeah, Raiders took care of business. Good for them in this one. Cincy and Green Bay. This was a bit of an interesting game because the Packers were dominating this game, it felt like. In the first half, they were only at 10-0. They were being super conservative with Flacco, the Bengals were. He had like 13 passing yards. And then at the end of the first half, they put together a half decent drive and they attempted a 67-yarder with McPherson. And well, actually, the first one, he was iced and he made it, but there was no pass rush. The second one, it was a bit short. And then the second half, the Bengals scored on every drive except the last one where they were down 11 or 9 points rather. Excuse me there. And they attempted a field goal to McPherson to go for the onside, to hopefully recover it with some time left, and McPherson missed the kick. But otherwise than that, their offense looked good in the second half. They figured something out there, it looks like. It kind of looked, and again, it was kind of methodical, very time consuming, it felt like. But I mean, the first drive took like 11 minutes or something, 9 minutes, something like that. Very lengthy drive. But it kind of looked like they figured something out there. And the Bengals defense, even though they got torched against the Lions and in this game, it feels like they've improved a bit, at least to me, even though that maybe the score and stats don't suggest that. But yeah, Green Bay, they're only at 10-0, but it feels like they're up like 21-0. The game was going. Their offense was kind of clutch since he cut it to 6 with a few minutes left, and the Packers got a big third down to Golden. He had a couple catches. He had a big game in this one. Yeah, their offense was good in this game. Felt like they should have won by more. Their defense was good in parts, but in the second half, it was, again, getting steamrolled, it felt like, by this Bengals. Well, maybe not steamrolled, but getting the ball moved on it consistently by this Bengals offense. And they're coming off, well, the bye week, but the game prior, they allowed 40 to Dallas, who, again, it's a really good offense, even without Lamb. But still, you would hope maybe they play a bit better of and again, I guess holding them to 18, maybe they're a bit lucky it wasn't 21, but yeah, Green Bay's defense, you can argue maybe some, signs, not necessarily, I don't want to say for concern, but things you want to see them improve on there. Would probably like a more decisive win for the Packers if they took care of business here. Since he figured something out, they put them away, you can argue. Bengals, at least they figured something. They lost, but it looks like they figured something out. Maybe their defense is starting to take some steps, you can say. So tough loss to them here. At least they got some positives out of it. Packers took care of business. Good for them to get a dub coming off the bye here. Niners Bucks. This was an entertaining game. The big takeaway from this one is injuries for the Niners. I mean, every season they just get absolutely railed with injuries. I don't know. I'm sure a part of it is because, their play style, the physical play style, but something has to be wrong with that training staff or something. I don't know. It's every year this happens. They lose Fred Warner for the year in this game, the leader of their defense, who's been like the one consistent healthy part of the team. And then after that, they had a couple miscues that allowed touchdowns that Fred Warner probably wouldn't, would have communicated that wouldn't have happened. So the Niners defense, obviously a brutal loss with Fred Warner. It honestly still feels like they played better than the final score indicates. Obviously the Bucs played great offensively, but it feels like CeeDee Lamb said he will play in Week 7 against the Commanders without limitations. Oh, that's a boost for the Cowboys. What's I gonna say? Oh yeah, so it feels like the Bucs, some of their points just came off like deep shots rather than consistently moving the ball against the Niners defense. They did move the ball consistently, but I'm just trying to say the Niners defense, at least to me, it felt like they played a bit better than a team that typically allows 30 points. Um, yeah, Mac Jones had. I actually thought Mac Jones played a good game. The stats will probably suggest he played a pretty poor game. The first pick was just a miscommunication with Kendrick Bourne that led to Bucks points. So bad field positioning for the Niners defense again. To citing some. I keep citing things that didn't go well for them there in this game. The second pick, it looked like he had a short pass underneath and kind of went deep through a pick. That was kind of brutal. Mac Jones has certainly played better than Purdy in this game. Mac Jones is hurt too. I saw a clip yesterday. Kyle Shanahan, he's reading off the injury report list. For Christ's sake, at this point, it's probably quicker for him to say the guys that are healthy. I mean, I have never seen anything like this repeatedly, where year after year the team just always has so many players injured. It is hard to believe that this keeps happening to the 49ers. Um, yeah, the Niners offense, I actually feel like moved the ball fairly well in this game. Um, yeah, Baker was absolutely phenomenal in this game, like he's been most of the season. As soon as they had a ridiculous play, or Baker did rather, where it was 3rd and 14, he drops back to pass. There's like two guys. It looks like they have Mayfield dead in the water for a sack. He gets out of it. He runs to the sideline. He makes a move, breaks out of another tackle and gets the ball beyond the marker for a first down. And then I think it was the play after that, or at least a few plays, might have been the play, but a few plays after that, Tez Johnson gets a touchdown catch. As soon as Mayfield converted that 3rd and 14, I'm like, yeah, they're going to win the game here. That is absolutely insane. They're at 27-19. They missed a field goal, and the Niners are moving the ball to tie it. I'm like, oh shit, here we go. Maybe they can tie it. Can be interesting here. And then Mac threw that pick. The Bucks also they roughed the punter, so I'm like, oh boy, the Niners getting another chance here. So the Niners certainly had their chances, but Tampa went up 30-19, and then the Niners they went for it on 4th down. They threw it very short of the stick. They would have lost anyway, most likely, most certainly, but they threw it short of the sticks, and Bucks just pushed them out of bounds. They lost. So yeah, with Fred Warner going down, that certainly impacted the game here. But the Bucks are another team. They're extremely injured too. Baker's throwing his 4th and 5th and even 6th string receivers, and he's still putting up 30. And again, even though Fred Warner out against one of the better defenses in the league, again with the Niners. So yeah, Tampa, really good win for them. Baker right up there in the MVP conversation. Really good season for him, obviously. Captain Clutch since he's been on the Bucs, but especially this season. I guess for the Bucs, their fans, at least they finally won a game that wasn't a nail biter, even though it was for majority of the game. Niners, brutal loss for them with Fred Warner. But it was obviously. I was not a brutal loss in terms of losing to the Bucs, but I just meant more so in terms of again injuries, losing Fred Warner for the season. Just a tough loss to them here. Caught some unlucky breaks, you can say. Baker being Baker, so tough loss to the Niners here. I think they'll still be a good team even without Warner. Robert Saleh, executive defensive coach, in my opinion. So yeah, Niners tough loss to them here. Bucs great win for them. 5-1. They're one of the more fun stories in the league with Baker this season. Okay, Lions Chiefs. Yeah, this was a bit of a disappointment from the Lions' perspective. Obviously, as a Chiefs hater, I was pulling for the Lions. I picked the Lions to win. It was interesting that the second half, the Lions did not play well at all. But the first half, it kind of felt like, a typical, maybe not atypical Lions game, because they didn't put up that many points in the first half, or in general this game, they only scored 17. But, they get the ball, their first drive, they're pounding the shit out of the football, running it, really lengthy drive. And then obviously what everyone's talking about, they get to the end zone, it's 4th and goal, they run the trick play, they snap it to Montgomery, direct snap, and he throws it to Goff, touchdown Lions. And then obviously everyone talking about how they wait a while And then the refs, after conversation, they overturned the call. Then Dan Campbell said New York got involved, which, apparently shouldn't happen. And, the refs before that said that, or well, the analysts, or someone said before that, oh, well, New York didn't get involved. They're allowed to huddle up. I think the analyst said that. Um, so yeah, a lot of controversy there. Obviously, uh, the Chiefs refs talk the past couple seasons, more especially last season, were I mean, I certainly am a part. I'm certainly part of it. This game and since the Chiefs have been the Chiefs with Mid Holmes and Reed, but especially last season. But yeah, this game that certainly ignited the refs talking, and also zero penalties on the Chiefs, even though there's multiple instances where they obviously should have been called for a penalty. Brian Branch after the game, going after Juju, he's just pissed off, taking his anger out. He's got suspended a game. Um, I think he appealed it, but I don't, or he's going to appeal it, but I don't think it's going to get overturned. Who knows though? I will say he certainly, he's getting pushed from behind by Juju. Mahomes is taunting, not taunting him, but flexing on him after the touchdown he got. Um, yeah, Lions just again, it felt like they were moving the ball well, but the problem is they were running it, running it, running it, so they're taking forever. So when they didn't score, it's like, all right, well, that was brutal. They took all that time and didn't score. Amon Ra had a bad drop on 4th and 2. At first, I thought it was, a difficult catch for him, but then on the replay, he should have had it. Hit him right in the hands. It was sort of a tough catch, but he absolutely should have had it, being Amon Ra St. Brown. So the Lions got a bad break there. Um, Also, I had Gibbs for a touchdown, and he's in every drive of the first half, and they hand it to him 3 straight times in the end zone and on their first try, and they can't get in. Of course, that's all I needed for my 5-leg touchdown parlay to cash. Of course, it doesn't happen. What else in this game? Yeah, the Chiefs offense. Again, I'm the arguably the top Chiefs hater of all time. I think Mahomes is the most overrated player in sports history. But I will say their offense is starting to make me nervous. It is looking very good the past 3 weeks since that Baltimore game. Even in the loss against Jacksonville, they had a shit ton of yardage. They probably should have put up more points than they did, 28. And the Lions defense, even though they were missing a bunch of guys in this game, the Chiefs still moved the ball extremely well. They were only stopped like one time on that 4th down that they went for. Besides that, the Lions defense really had a tough time in this game. Chiefs defense, the past couple seasons, it's always been one of the better defenses. They only allowed 7 points to the Lions in the second half. As poor as the Lions played, it was a 3-point game in the fourth quarter. I'm like, here we go, Detroit. And then obviously the Chiefs ended up, controlling the game from there. Um, yeah, Chiefs played a really good game. Of course, again, the refs did give them some breaks here, per usual. Obviously, the league's not going to want them to fall to 3-4, but I do think they outplayed the Lions in this game. I don't think the refs handed the Chiefs the game, but they certainly gave them some breaks. As far as the Goff touchdown, should that have counted? I don't know. It is suspicious that they said, "Oh well, the refs just conference together," and then Dan Campbell said, "Well, New York got involved." Well, yeah, that's a bit uh, what's the word? Like controversial, you can say. That's a bit of a question mark. A study came out after this game that said the Chiefs done by some professor at a university like Carolina, something like South Carolina, something like that, that said the Chiefs get favoritism from the refs, specifically in the playoffs. That that's good to see. Saying now that we how much do we want to take that study as an actual credible source? But at least we can say we have a source that suggests it. Um, yeah, tough loss to the Lions here. They didn't play a very great game. I think they'll be fine though. They'll still be one of the better teams in the league. Chiefs again are starting to make me a bit nervous, and they play the Raiders this week, so they'll probably win in a blowout. But who knows? Hopefully the Raiders can somehow pull it off, some miracle. But yeah, good win for the Chiefs, as painful as it is. Lions not a great performance overall here. The first Monday night game, which by the way, I cannot stand the double Monday night headers. I think it's the dumbest thing ever. I'm trying to watch both games at one on my TV, one on my tablet. The whole point of prime time is to have one game, but they make it twice. So thankfully, they're doing it yet again this week, but I'm pretty sure this is the last time they're doing it this season. Thank the Lord. The first one was Bills Falcons. Thank you, Falcons, because my team, the Patriots, are now first in the AFC East, which is the first time since 2021. So thank you, Falcons. Sorry about 28-3. I thought the Falcons were going to blow it, not going to lie. They were dominating the game. They're up 21-7, and then they get the pick on the Bills defense played an awful first half, and they're up 21-7. The Falcons doing anything they want, moving the ball. Bijan at a like what 80 yard touchdown run, something like that. They're moving it, running, passing through the air, on the ground. They're doing whatever they want. They get the pick on Allen. He was kind of out of sorts this game. And they're just trying to get a field goal. And Drake London's wide open. He goes to the touchdown. It looks like he had it first, then he's out of bounds. I'm like, yep, the Bills are going to win the game. They're going to win off that game, momentum change. And Buffalo, the second half, they get the ball, go right down the field, score, make it 21-14. I'm like, yep, the Bills are going to win this game from that goddamn Drake London play being out of bounds. I'm like, son of a bitch, rooting for the Falcons, obviously trying to get my team first in the division. And the Falcons offense really didn't do too much. They're moving the ball a bit, but they only put up 3 points in the second half. They had a blocked field goal. I'm like, oh my God, the Bills are going to do it again. The Bills had a 4th and 2 they went for. Allen shuffled it, but it was not one of his better passes. Probably should have had that one. So I'm like, all right, Falcons get a bit of a break. When the Bills blocked the field goal, I'm like, nope, they're going to win the game now. Falcons, their defense held. Then they had a really lengthy drive. They got a field goal. And then they're up, obviously, 10, but they just let the Bills march right down the field in very little time. And the Bills sort of needed to get the onside. They had scored, so the Falcons probably and then score again. So the Falcons probably should have still won the game, but then they got the pick, and I'm like, thank God. But I was a bit nervous again, even though I shouldn't have been. There are 2 scores under 2 minutes. The Bills have no timeouts, that they were still going to blow the game, especially that being the Falcons, who always blow games. The Falcons, they're a really weird team to read this season. They had the obviously absolutely brutal loss, terrible loss to the Panthers, 30-0. They upset the Vikings. They win this game. They beat the Commanders. Well, actually, I guess really the only weird loss they had was week 3 against the Panthers. That Tampa loss looked better and better every week with how good the Bucs are. So the Falcons, maybe a bit of a surprise this season. Feels like they're kind of a bit streaky in terms of their defense and offense. Their offense looks great, their defense looks great, then one unit doesn't, one does, vice versa. So they can just consistently put together the performances where their defense and offense are on the same page like they did in the first half. Falcons could be a bit of a surprise team. They already are this season, I think. So, yeah, really good win for the Falcons. Bills struggling a bit. Some talk about do they need receiver help for Josh Allen? And they were missing some guys in this game too. Josh Allen's kind of been off a bit the past 2 weeks, more so in this game than he was against my team the prior week. The Bills have lost 2 in a row. So that's, a talking point there. Not a great performance. And then their defense has been bad the entire season outside of that Jets game. And the Jets offense has been awful outside of that Steelers game week 1. And the Bills, their only wins are against terrible teams, which, it's weird saying that is with the Ravens, but they're 1-5. They struggled to beat the Saints. Even though they won by 2 scores, the Saints are 1-5. Who else? Who the hell else did they beat? The Jets, obviously the Jets are 0-6. They're a disaster. And the Dolphins, who are 1-5, they barely put that game away. That Tua pick at the end killed them. The Dolphins. So the Bills, all of their wins are against 1-win teams, and we're now about to be week 7 tonight. Thursday game kicks off in a couple hours. So the Bills, maybe some concerning signs there. I'm sure they'll be fine. They'll still be the Bills, but yeah, great win for the Falcons. Bad loss to the Bills in this one. Oh boy, this was an entertaining game. The second Monday night game, Chicago and Washington, obviously a rematch of the Fail Mary from last season that completely derailed the Bears season. Um, yeah. So Troy Aikman, I think, summed this game up pretty well at the end when he said, whichever team, lost this game is going to be punching themselves about the opportunities they missed. The Commanders had three turnovers, so obviously that's their opportunity. The first one, wide open touchdown, Daniels misfired through a pick. The second one, a fumble, and then the third one, 3rd and 1, and they get in a pistol formation, which would have gone a long way to ice the game if they get the first down there, and they fumble it. Jane Daniels kind of just tossed it in Bill, as they call him, Bill's chest, and they turn it over. Then the Bears, they got absolutely hosed by the refs numerous times in this game. They're in complete control of the game, and the refs are giving the Commanders some very lenient calls, some flags they're throwing on the Bears. They had a touchdown overturned. Odunze made an insane spinning catch that was extremely questionable. So the Bears kind of got hosed by the refs a few times. And I'm kind of like neutral when it comes to both of these teams. I kind of pull for the Bears a bit in general, honestly. But I'm kind of neutral for both these teams. I will say I am a bit happy the Bears, even though I picked the Commanders, I'm a bit happy the Bears won because obviously the Commanders just won off pure luck against the Bears last year with the Hail Mary. Well, actually, that was interesting because you can argue both teams should have won. I remember talking about this specifically. You can say both teams should have won that game. I feel like the Commanders were dominating, but then the Bears obviously should have won. If it comes down to a Hail Mary, the team that is defending the Hail Mary probably should be winning the game. And, the pass gets deflected perfectly into Noah Brown's hands. So obviously some luck there, even though it was an incredible play by Daniels to get it there in the first place, fitting the pass rushers and such. But still, Bears must have felt good for them to, go into Washington, get revenge from the Hail Mary game. They've won three in a row, and they play a bad team this week. Who the hell? Oh, the Saints. Actually, that could be an interesting game in New Orleans, but the Bears probably should win that game. So they probably, if they win that game, they'll win four in a row. They'll be 4-2. And they looked like a disaster after week 2 when they got the doors blown off them by the Lions. Um, getting a 50-plus burger put up on them. And they're 0-2. Their defense is injured beyond belief. Now, I will say that the Bears' offense has been pretty good. Also, Zacchaeus had a brutal drop on a 2nd and 1 where they were backed up like by their end zone, but there was no one in front of him. He might have scored or at least had a big play, and he dropped it. So that was another missed opportunity for the Bears. They ended up winning the game still, but the Bears defense, it's a bit like the Jaguars. You can ease, and the Jags defense has been better than the Bears, but you can move the ball in this Bears defense. They keep forcing turnovers. How sustainable is it that the Bears are going to keep forcing the turnovers? Kind of the same thing I said with the Jaguars. And you can argue that they're forcing the turnovers and they're still barely winning by the skin of their teeth. They won 25-24 2 weeks in a row. Actually, it's going to be the first time in NFL history that's happened. A team's won 25-24 in back-to-back weeks. Well, the Bears coming off the bye, but I mean their last game against the Raiders. The Commanders had some guys out. I kind of expect the Commanders to regress a bit this season. Their offense, they're sitting at 3-3. I think they'll be around a 10-win team. I predicted 10-7 for my preseason predictions. I think they'll finish around there. They've kind of looked how I expected them to at their so far this season. They look good some games, sort of iffy some games, bad some games. Well, really, the only game they looked bad in was that Packers game week 2, and they still, were within reach there. Yeah, Commanders, I feel pretty good about my 10-win prediction for them. Bears, trending in the right direction. They've won three in a row. Their defense, you can say, maybe they're going to get some guys back. They'll get even better. Their offense certainly getting better by the week. Good win for them here. Jake Moody, good story for him. Obviously, very inconsistent with the Niners. Got cut after week 1. 3 field goals in this game, including the game winner. And I thought he missed the game winner. It looked like a bad snap. So good job for the holder to get the ball in a good position there. One of his kicks got blocked. So I'm like, oh my! I was like nervous for him heading into this game. Okay, so sorry, I had to pause my recording. My dad came in to ask me something real quick, but I was saying, yeah, I was nervous for Moody on the last kick, even though it's kind of neutral, not really necessarily point for either team, even though I picked the Commanders. But at least he made the kick. Good for him. Good redemption story. Good win for the Bears overall. Tough one for the Commanders in this one. Um, okay. Let me make sure I got all the games here. Okay, so yeah, I will wrap this video up here. So good week of football. Overall, some good games, some very ugly games. I'm looking at this Broncos Jets game here. So pretty good, entertaining week. As we get deeper into the season, the real teams kind of start to, reveal themselves. The more so fraud teams start to reveal themselves. We find out who's good, who's bad. Preseason expectations usually start to form. Get a clearer picture. Um, Except this season's just been so weird with all the upsets. Who the hell knows? And all the turnovers, things like that. Who knows at this point? As long as it's not the Chiefs. Hopefully it's my team. That would be fantastic. But yeah, I will end the video here. Hopefully you guys did good with fantasy picks, betting, all that good stuff, as I always say. But thank you guys for tuning in. Hopefully you enjoyed, and take it easy, guys.